Well, good afternoon. It's Holy Tuesday. This is Dave Tolhurst from the parish of St Matthew and St Wilfrid, Sunderland, with the second of our Holy Week reflections. Welcome. Thank you for joining us, whether that's now live on Facebook or whether you are watching this later on. Holy Tuesday is a different day. Yesterday we focused on Jesus and the cleansing of the temple. Holy Tuesday is the day that Jesus goes back to the temple, but this time to teach, this time to tell parables. Jesus knows where he's going and his parables are clear. Jesus talks to the leaders of Israel, sometimes in significant judgment about the way they've behaved, some of which we saw yesterday in the cleansing of the temple. Today I'm going to read to you one of the parables. It's a combination between a parable and a miracle on that day. I'm reading from St Matthew's Gospel, chapter 22, beginning at the 18th verse. Early in the morning, he was on his way back to the city. He was hungry. Seeing a fig tree by the road, he went up to it, but it found nothing on it except leaves. Then he said to it, "May you never bear fruit again." Immediately the fig tree withered. When the disciples saw this, they were amazed. "How did the fig tree wither so quickly?" they asked. Jesus replied, "I tell you the truth. If you have faith and do not doubt, not only can you do what was done to the fig tree, but you can also say to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself in the sea,' and it will be done. If you believe, you will receive back what you ask for in prayer." Well, it's an odd reading, isn't it? Probably why I chose it. Of all the parables or miracles or acts that Jesus does, why does he kill a fig tree because he can't eat some fruit? Is it an act of petulance? An act of selfishness? Well, that doesn't seem like the Jesus that we know. This is an acted parable. This is symbolic. The fig tree is, very much like the vine or the vineyard, a symbol of Israel. A typical Israelite would be found sat under a fig tree. But, as we've already discovered yesterday when we looked and reflected on the cleansing of the temple, the religion of the day isn't working, and here particularly it's not bearing fruit. If the fig tree is Israel, there is no fruit. In Mark's Gospel, this same account, there is a concern that it's not yet time for the fig tree to bear fruit and Jesus is being unfair. But actually, at this time in the fig tree's life, it will actually bear immature fruit, which are called taksh. And the taksh were bitter and they were small, but they were eaten by the poor and the peasants. Israel had forgotten to serve anybody but itself at this point. The religious leaders were being criticised by Jesus because they had forgot the poor, the widow and the orphan. They had forgot to celebrate the good news of God. Former Bishop of Durham, Tom Wright, often uses the analogy that they at the time were like the postman who loved the letters so much he kept them all and forgot to deliver them. Israel were not bringing the good news and the joy to the world that they should. There's that bit there about moving mountains, which is often quoted as a way of understanding prayer. If you have enough faith, even you can pick that mountain up and throw it in the sea. In honesty, it fits with the fig tree, because actually Jesus is on his way to the mount, to Temple Mount, the mountain where the temple is itself. And he says, you could pick this mountain up and throw it in the sea. So that really, even though God does most definitely answer prayer in faith, and it does say that, is also another judgment on religion of the day. So where does that leave us? Well, I think it leaves us with two questions that I'd like to leave you with today, very simple ones. And the first is individual. Where are we individually bearing fruit? Loving our neighbour, caring for the other, helping those in self-isolation. Where are we doing those things? And how can we do more that transforms people's lives in these tough times? Is there anything that you can do? Is there another neighbour that just needs a telephone call? That person we haven't thought about? That person who's lonely today? How can we each do that as disciples of Christ and transform people in Jesus' name? And the second question is, what's God saying to us as a church in these strange times? How does he help us bear fruit? Not just the fruit of the fig, but that immature fruit, that bittersweet fruit of the tatch, which is there to help the poor and the needy. God is taking us all as individuals and as a church and as a community, a nation and a world through very difficult times. It's a time for us all to be reflective and to think about how he can use us more, to pray for all in need, and to reflect on our place in God's kingdom. So thank you for joining us. I'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock for Holy Wednesday. God bless.